Every tissue is derived out of one of the three germ layers. The three germ layers come from the one root cell, which is when life starts. So let's take a look at embryology a little bit more. At first, there's a fertilized egg. The sperm hits the egg becomes fertilized, and then we have a cell division. 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, etc. And this multiplication happens until we have a thing called gastrula, which is a combined cell with many different cells. So when we take a zoom into the gastrula, we see that that type of cell now has 3 different layers. The endoderm, which is the inner part of the gastrula, the mesoderm, which is the middle part, and the ectoderm, which is the outer part. So those 3 layers, the endoderm, inner part, mesoderm, middle part, and ectoderm, outer part. And each of these 3 layers, these are kind of the root layers, eventually develop into a set of tissues, very specific tissues. So the endoderm, which is part of the older tissues, they differentiate themselves into the linings of the digestive tract, the stomach, the intestines, into the lungs. They become lung cells. They become liver cells. They become pancreas cells. They become thymus cells, etc. Because they're old type of tissues, the sponge type of tissues, they have cell plus, more cells, more building a wall in the adaptation phase, right? These are all derived from the endoderm, the sponge type tissues. Another type of tissue that is derived from the endoderm is the jelly. And the endoderm cells also differentiate into bladder smooth muscle, the muscle that you cannot contract by volition, the stomach muscle, intestinal muscles, etc. Those type of muscles are the jellyfish muscle. They're also derived from the endoderm, meaning that also in the adaptation phase, they have a cell plus more cells. They build a wall, more cells, more function in the adaptation phase. Then we have the mesoderm. We have early mesoderm and later mesoderm. The early mesoderm is still old type of tissue. You can see it with the blue border around the turtle. And the turtle type tissue derive into dermis, the thick layery part of the skin, the pericardium, the protective lining around the heart, and the peritoneum, the protective lining around your stomach areas, and some more. And also the early mesoderm, the old type of tissue, have a cell plus in the adaptation phase because it's old type tissue. It's the blue border around it, right? So they build more cells in the adaptation phase. Now let's move to the newer type tissue. When we have early mesoderm, we have late mesoderm, which is a new type of tissue, which is bare tissue with an orange border. Mesoderm cells also differentiate themselves into bones, muscles, tendons, etc., with movement stability. Because this is new type of tissue, the bare tissue, is cell minus, cell reduction, bone decalcification, muscle atrophy, cell minus or less function in the adaptation phase. The next level is the ectoderm, which is also a new type of tissue, which is the chimp tissue. We see the orange border around the icon, meaning it's new type of tissue. And ectoderm cells differentiate themselves into the epidermis, which is the outer layer of the skin, the part of the skin that you can actually touch with your fingers, the lining of the mouth, the nervous system, the adrenal medulla, medulla means middle part, etc. Because it's new type tissue, we have cell minus in the adaptation phase, so less function of the cells in adaptation phase. So the epidermis, for example, is chimp brain, chimp tissue. Chimp tissue is new tissue, is cell minus in the adaptation phase. So if I have a trauma related to lack of touch, which is the theme of the epidermis, we have cell minus, cell reduction, ulceration of the external skin. So let's put them together. We have old brain tissue, new brain tissue. Old type of tissue, new type of tissue. The old type of tissue all have a blue border. The new type of tissue all have an orange border. The old type of tissue, like the sponge, jellyfish, and turtle tissue, do more cells building structures, giving more hormones in the adaptation phase and breaking down the wall in the restoration phase. The new type of tissue with the orange border have a cell reduction in the adaptation phase and a build-up in the restoration phase. So what is important to remember is every tissue in the body is derived from one of these groups. The sponge brain, the bear brain, the jellyfish, the chimp, the turtle. All of these icons, elements, sponge, jelly, turtle, bear, and chimp, are types of tissues. So now we can take a look at the kidney again. The yellow squares are sponge tissue, meaning in the adaptation phase, cell plus or cell minus, cell plus. We have a blue border around the sponge brain, meaning cell plus, more cells, more activation in the adaptation phase. And we have the blue areas, which is bare tissue, which is new type tissue, which is orange, which is cell minus, so less function in the adaptation phase. So what does it look like in the kidney problems? So if I have more activation, the yellow triangles like 2 or 4 is the kidney collecting ducts. When we have a adaptation phase of the kidney collecting ducts, which is sponge tissue, they're functioning harder, they're working harder and storing more water. The filtering device of the kidneys is the blue part, the kidney parenchyma. Parenchyma means functioning part of meaty part. It's blue type of tissue, like it's bare tissue, meaning that in the adaptation phase, we have cell minus. And just like a filter, the holes of the filter become larger, cell minus, the holes become larger. So the filtering is not that good. So more stuff gets through it and there's less filtering functioning. We get it all in there for each of the different tissue types, but just to have an overview, which is good to see right now. So the embryology imitates actually the evolution. So from a single cell organism to a human being. And we can see it like this. Like in the bottom of the ocean, there's the sponge, and the way more up we go, all the way into the trees at the chimp. So the sponge brain is the oldest tissue, both in development of a baby as in evolution. And sponge tissue is all about digestion. The jellyfish is a little bit more advanced, is moving stuff in the digestion, which is a little bit newer, both in evolution as in embryological development. Even more recent is the turtle tissue, which is still part of the old brain, old tissue. it's all about the protective layers. It's also the moving from sea to land. Those three, the sponge, the jelly, and the turtle, are also below the water level here, right? So it's old tissue. Once we go on land, as in evolution, the bare tissue becomes present, and the bare tissue is all about movement, which is new brain tissue, meaning cell minus in the adaptation phase. And the chimp is all in the trees, which is even more recent tissue and even more recent development in embryologically scene as well as an evolutionary scene. It's the most recent tissue, which is more about social connection. So this is how you can see the different interactions, the different developmental stages of the different tissues. And on the left and the right, you can see what happens in the adaptation phase and in the restoration phase. For example, on the orange on the left, you see digging a hole, cell minus. And on the right, you see the orange being refilled, refilling the hole, which is new brain tissue. Orange is new brain tissue. The bluish areas, you see at the bottom left, building a wall, which is adaptation for the blue tissues. And breaking down the wall on the right is breaking down. It's the adaptation phase. And we're going to cover this in many different ways, so don't worry.
If you like this, you probably want me to make more of that. So share your insights, share your comments below, and what videos would you like to see?